Great. Let's talk
Lots of.
D&D.
Yeah, I mean, let's. It's been what 2 months now since we've done anything with D&D. Because when did we run Follies?
Uh,
We ran.
the end of November, I believe. The very
Yes,
end.
that's correct. Yeah, so the end of November. So it's been. Yeah, it's been about 2 months since we've done that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a
So
while. It's been kind of nice, honestly. Not have to think about anything for a month. But I'm
yeah,
ready. Ready to get back in.
absolutely. And so for the people who haven't necessarily been following up on D&D as a whole, like what we've been doing with it, we announced at the end of Yalaton that for Season 2, also known as Yalaton, the Age of Revolution,
Mm-hmm.
the Age of Revolution was going to be taking a structural change in that it was going to be focusing a little bit more one-shotty in nature, but at the same time, like while telling a story. So the idea still kind of stands with that, but there's been some slight tweaks and modifications made to it in that it isn't necessarily a different story every week, and it may be, but what is different about it is that the arcs are a little bit more serialized in nature, so they may not necessarily be one-shots, but they may be stories that we kind of bounce back and forth between that may unfold over the course of like 3-4 sessions.
Right, yeah.
So it maintains keeping a consistent story within Yalaton and building up the universe and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's kind of a small change in terms of like execution, but I think it'll make something really interesting in that we're going to be able to, if we want to, we can say, you know what, why don't we let this story simmer for a little bit, and why don't we bounce somewhere else?
Sure.
Or why don't we bounce to a different period of time within Yalaton? Because there has been a little bit of behind-the-scenes lore work, and we actually have a very rough timeline of the past 5-6 centuries that Yalaton has existed.
Yes. Which is...
So
it's a lot.
really rough, though. It's
Yeah.
really, really rough, though. Like, we have the general ages and eras and that sort of thing, but we don't necessarily have super specific details set up. That's partially because we just haven't necessarily gotten to them yet, and we kind of want to paint with a broad brush here because I want players to be defining the world, and that's kind of the big thing that is the message within Season 2 of Yalaton, is that the world matters, but the characters matter more. And the characters are the ones who need to be making themselves people who have an impact within the world and people who create the world around them. Like, we're going to have... It's a lot less in terms of... the proper term is called railroading.
Mm-hmm.
There is not going to be nearly as much of that once we get deeper into the campaign. And we'll touch on that as we get towards like more about Yalaton as a whole. But we want people to shape our world. We want people to shape their characters. Everything that happens and everyone who inhabits this world means something.
Right.
And that's a big thing that we wanted to do with it, is we want to put agency into the player's hands. So naturally, the first decision that we had when kind of talking about this season was we wanted to talk to players about what they wanted to see from Yalaton in terms of character design. And there was kind of a split about the ideas for characters, with the two ideas being thrown around, not really having a clear consensus. But the two options that were being tossed out there were people play only as one character that has a sliding reputation scale, or they could create their own miniature roster of characters, likely to be 3, with the opportunity to assign specific factions to each individual player. Now, both sides kind of have their merits and their drawbacks. On the side of single-player mentality, it's easier to maintain at the start, with work being done about some of the more complex mechanics, like the rep scale, for instance, kind of as we go along, but not really. Like, the ideas are coming together for that, but in earlier parts of the season, it wouldn't be as relevant. And again, when we talk about how the season's getting set up, you'll understand what that means. But the thing is what a single player does is it gives the players a lot of choice and a lot of agency about their character, which allows them to play a character who has more nuance to them rather than be someone who's slotted into an always good, an always evil, or an always neutral situation. You know, more causes may mean others to them, and this allows them to expand on that a lot. So, like, for instance, they may be an inherently good character, but there might be a certain conflict going on in a certain geographical area that they really don't give a shit about. So they're not really going to stand by and do anything for it because it doesn't personally impact them. And the thing is as a good guy, you're naturally inclined to go in there and help. And as a bad guy, you're naturally inclined to go in there and help the bad guys.
Right.
Character may be good, but may have some certain things that they just really don't care about.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives them that opportunity to build that idea. On the side of going a multiple player, so creating a miniature roster for every player, it gives players opportunities to try lots of different things, which is awesome. But what it does is it demands a ton of upfront work in terms of coding characters at the outset of the campaign. And something like that is not only super time consuming, but for people who aren't experienced with D&D, it's also really intimidating.
Yeah,
too.
it's a lot to ask.
So, because if you've never built one character before, like, if you only built maybe 1 or 2 characters in the past, like, asking you to design 3 for a single campaign, that's asking a lot right there.
Yeah, for sure.
And the thing is while having multiple players takes some agency out of the player's hands and their choices to be good, evil, or neutral off of the bat, what it is a benefit for, though, is having characters already defined as such would allow us to jump into situations that demand specific viewpoints a lot more readily.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of has that draw in that aspect. And in this case, also the back end would not be as much in this situation as the front end would be, and reputation systems like the rep slider, it wouldn't need to be designed since they're already established with the characters, you know, more or less.
Right.
So after kind of talking with a few people, taking into everybody's counsel into idea, the ultimate decision was that we decided for the purposes of Yalaton that it is going to be a single player per character with a sliding reputation scale, because the idea of a character being defined by player choice and allowing them to be more fluid resonates with what D&D and what specifically we were trying to achieve with Season 2, letting our players take the reins and define who they are and where they are. Not to mention the rep scales are going to play into something that we're going to touch on later, but I think it's going to be a really interesting and exciting addition to Yalaton as a whole with the Age of Revolution.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So, with the single player, one of the things we also wanted to make sure is, with this large and evolving universe, like, Yalaton has become way bigger than it was originally intended to be. And we want to continue the development of that campaign setting, and to do so, there are a few things that we want of players that are planning on becoming a part of the universe or staying within it. And so I'm going to talk about a few of those here. The first thing that was a concern about sessions as a whole and characters is how many will be playing each week for a session.
Right.
We decided that for as many sessions as we can, we would prefer 4-man campaigns, so 4 people.
Yeah, easier to manage. Everybody gets to talk a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for certain sessions or situations, we'd include 5 for the purposes of mainline sessions, and that's a limit. Now, there are some ideas that are like super, super early in development, and one of them is still kind of looking into it, and when I say it's like really early, I mean like stupid early. It's just kind of like something that was written on a post-it note to think about.
Right.
And the idea is what's called an all-hands session, where anybody who is able to make it is invited to join. However, this is many months away from being even considered, and as cool as the idea sounds, parties with more than 5 people are really hard to run, so it's possible that this idea might not even work in execution either. It might be legitimately just a pie-in-the-sky thing. Like, this is cool. There's no way in hell it's going to work.
Right.
So I don't want players to expect, oh, there's going to be one session that has like a 13-man party. Well, if we can find a way to make it work, it may happen, but again, this is several months down the line before I can even consider making this a potential option.
Yeah, for sure.
So participation in the Age of Revolution. One of the biggest things that we wanted to do with the season was we wanted a rotating roster. We didn't want to be stuck with the same 5 people. Not because any of the people that we played with are good or anything like that, but because the interest for Dungeons & Dragons grew so much while we were doing the one-shots. We want to get those people playing with us as well.
Right.
So we're opening it up to a rotary cast, and it's going to be a sign-up system. And if in the event that there are more sign-ups than there are spots, there are already plans to run a lottery for this. And it's got a few caveats here that I'm going to go over. If we have a 4-man campaign and 5 people sign up, we're going to go ahead and bring all 5 with us, because we'll touch on exclusion with this next one here. If 6 people sign up for the campaign, we're only going to take 4 people. Now, the reason for that decision is because while we're not the biggest fans of exclusion, I mean, if we had it our way, we'd have as many people in as we could every single time.
Yeah.
But the thing is if it's 6 people signing up for a 5-man campaign, it really, really sucks to exclude people, and it sucks even more to be the only person who misses out.
Right.
So think of this as the misery loves company clause in a way. If you are rejected, you're not the only one. It sucks, but such is life. If 7 or more people sign up for a session, we reserve the right to expand it to a 5-man session if we want to, but we can also keep it a 4-man session too.
Sure, yeah.
So, in that instance, multiple people are being turned away anyways, and it basically is a will of what happens with the rolling. For the people who come out on the losing end of a D&D lottery, though, it's not all doom and gloom. If you sign up for a session and you fail to be chosen, you will be given what is called a priority pass. Now, what priority passes do is they allow you to automatically be placed into the next session that you can make, regardless of how many people have already applied for it. Now, players can only have 1 priority pass to their name at a time. You can acquire more passes later, so that's not saying, oh, you only get this 1 priority pass, period, in the story. Use it well. Like, that's not fair. So you can get multiple passes, but you cannot have more than 1 at any given time. And we came up with the system so people don't get continuously screwed out of playing the game. It's really unfair to want to experience something and then not get in several times consecutively because the dice didn't roll your way.
Right.
With this system, it's essentially ensuring if you want to get in, you will make it to the table at some point. Promise about that. And should crazy situations come up with priority passes, they'll be handled on case-by-case bases, with those decisions acting as precedent for future situations. So if something comes up that we didn't necessarily think about with creating our initial set of systems and rules, we'll convene about it, we'll come up with an appropriate solution, and then we'll let that guide us. Because what's also not fair is when you have 3 situations that are really similar and you make 3 different calls. That's not fair. There should be some precedent set for a similar situation.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So this creates that. Now, when it comes to participating in Yalaton as a whole, here we do have a couple metrics here, and the main one is that they'll need to have played a tabletop game in the past with one of our main players on stream and receive their blessing if it wasn't a D&D session that I ran, or have participated in a one-shot production done here with Burning Barrel. For those who have signed up and haven't been in a one-shot campaign, we'll be getting to that a little later, but rest assured we've got details for those, and we have not forgotten about you guys. So I don't want people to think, oh, well, you just threw up this requirement and I haven't gotten to play. Don't worry. We're going to get to you. Promise, we've got stuff in the works. For the cast of Yalaton, as it grows, its ever-diverse cast of characters does too. And we'll be talking a little bit about NPCs and their systems a little later on, but the biggest thing for us with characters is everybody has a place in the world, and that includes player characters. PCs should have some sort of like a little bit of a background that isn't too complex, or one that doesn't necessarily initially reveal everything. And this is something we want to see in the form of pages on the Yalaton Wikia, because yes, one does exist. When Season 2 kicks into gear, it's going to be a lot better maintained, but we want characters that are new and important to have a place in the world, so they should have one on the Wikia. If you have a character and you're kind of struggling to come up with an idea, feel free to ask fellow players. They're probably more than willing to help you out with creating one. And so, with that, creating your character and your story, you know, sometimes characters don't pan out to be what you hope they were gonna be. Like their backstory isn't meshing really well, or you picked a class that, you know, you're just not really enjoying. It happens. So what we're doing is, in exchange for giving players the single character system, we're allowing players to swap out characters for somebody new if they choose to. So if you're like, you know what, I'm playing as a fighter and I really don't like this class, but I want to be a caster instead, that's fine. There's only one main caveat with this rule. You got to give them a fitting exit.
You got to execute them.
Okay, that's not exactly what that means.
A fitting exit is execution.
Is it really?
No. There's probably other things you could do.
Sure. So the thing is, it's like walking off into the sunset. That's really not an acceptable end for anyone. So you can take a look at this for two different methods. If you think you want to come back to the character later on, we can work out some kind of an ending that leaves them open to returning in the future. But if they just don't seem like you like them, and you don't want to play as them ever again, well, their fate can be a lot more creative. You can't just bring in new characters without properly sending off an older one without good narrative reason, because we want to build a story here. So consider this when it comes to new characters. And of course, the last thing to talk about with characters is that player participation and membership as a part of the rotating cast for Yalaton is something that is both determined and maintained by both myself, the Dungeon Master, as well as Paul. Removal from this roster comes after the discussion of individuals and that is also at the discretion of myself and for Paul as well.
Word.
So, just to keep that in mind. Now,
you have to fuck up really bad though, like for us to consider removal. Like you have to be a dick, basically.
Yeah, like it would take a lot to be removed, but we ultimately, if it's something that is an issue, you know, it's just something that has to be taken care of, and we want to maintain that our group is a good group, so we will take the causes needed to ensure that they'll stay a good group if we need to. So let's talk a little bit about this reputation scale that we've touched on here. We want our characters to matter in this session. That's the biggest thing, is that people matter. So as a whole, their actions should as well, which is where the idea of the rep scale comes in. Now, it's a little bit more like Mass Effect-esque in nature, because some actions you do may have impacts in different ways than other actions do. For example, let's use the situation here as the bad guys, as we've been kind of shown a little bit of, but not particularly. The Steelheart Society is ransacking a Yalaton village, and you are walking by and you see this. There are a lot of different ways you can go with this. You could assist the villagers in fighting off the invaders, or you could assist the society and pillage the village with them. You could also walk away from the situation altogether and do nothing. You can also defend the villagers if you want to, destroying the society, and then if you want to, you can just turn around and pick up where they left off and rob the villagers yourselves. Or you can also defend the society from the villagers, and then once the villagers look to continue, you can turn around and backstab them in the process. And from there, I'm sure there are even other alternatives to consider. But the most important thing is that all combinations of events and all of the examples that I gave for that situation would affect your reputation in different ways. Now, characters are going to get a few interesting ways to affect their own scale as well, because there are two different things to consider. The party's actions affect their own reputation scale as well as individual actions. So every scenario where reputation can be affected has two components, where group and individual actions affect the scale. So, for instance, it may be a situation where the majority of the group agrees to do something but you're not necessarily in agreement with. I mean, the majority of the group will kind of propel the story forward, so that'll have an impact on your rep, but your own individual actions have some significance too. So basically, if you're the one person who's like, I don't agree, like, what you think should still matter, so you're not getting swept under the rug entirely because the rest of your party might be a bunch of goody-goody two-shoes in a certain situation. Right. So players are not beholden to the party desire, however, at all, when they're sent out on something new that we're introducing to Yalaton, which this is called the Warfront missions. The Warfront missions are something that will be happening at the end of each session once we really get full rolling with Yalaton. When the party reconvenes back at the Yalatanian Consortium's, HQ, as it were, Caligursa Castle, Bandis, the players are going to be shown ongoing conflicts on a world map. Players at this time get to choose where they wish to go to change the tides of battle. Players at the time that they are shown the list of Warfront missions must make two decisions. The first one, the more obvious one, where am I going to go? Am I going to go anywhere at all? Or am I going to go help out different people? And secondly, if you choose a conflict, what side will I choose? So you can choose to go any conflict of your choosing, in addition to which side you sympathize with as well. You can choose to sabotage the Consortium, or take arms against the Society. You can do either one. So here's the best part about this for player choices, and I personally love this, is that you have these two questions. Where will I go? And who will I fight for? As a player, you're only going to have to publicly answer the first question. At the least, your party should know where you're going, right, as should the kingdom. So at the very least, should be very much known, I'm going here or I'm going nowhere. However, you do not have to say what side that you're supporting. You don't have to say it out loud, at least. That information will still be conferred to me, because I need to know where you're going and who you're fighting for. So, basically, I need to know what's up, but nobody else needs to.
Right, for all the back-end stuff.
Right, and the thing is that players in battles help turn the tides and some under-the-hood stuff that we're still kind of working on. We don't have the mechanics set up for it yet, but we have an idea of how we want it to work. Because what we want to do is we want to create a giant world map of Yalaton that has different areas that are territories that are owned or taken over by different factions. So ultimately, what the Warfront missions are is almost in a way like playing a gigantic game of Risk on the world map, where your presence makes a difference and could mean certain factions gain or lose territories in the war. So we have our ideas how we want it to work, but we're not there mechanically just quite yet. But we are working on it. And so that's something that's going to be new to the campaign, is the Warfront missions. Next up is something that we also talked a little bit about at the end of Season 1 of Yalaton, and we're going to be implementing it in Season 2. This is going to actually be fun, because as our players should level up, well, what about our NPCs? They should get tougher too, right? So we're adding an NPC progression system to the game. With making sure that our characters continue to make a difference, we want NPCs to also be something that have an impact in the world too. And they're going to help you. But they're going to help you in exchange for you helping them. The way that you're going to help them comes with investing into their businesses.
Right.
Now, to kind of work with this is, in this session, missions in the game award a lot more gold than your usual affairs would. But with all earnings, there's always some kind of a catch. A large chunk of it is required to go to the kingdom as a part of the wartime efforts. Funds are needed to supply the kingdom, and your efforts will ensure that that continues to happen. So if you want to think about it kind of like a big-ass tax that's put on your income. Like a rather large one, because the war effort is not going to be a cheap endeavor. Now, that chunk that goes to the kingdom is getting split into two pieces. The Wartime Effort Maintenance Fund, which ensures that the Yalatanian Consortium can continue the fight, can treat their injured, can, acquire new supplies as they need to, so on and so forth. But the second fund is what is called the Discretionary Fund. This discretionary account is what the players use to level up your NPCs. There's all kinds of different NPCs that you can level up, and by leveling them up, they can provide all kinds of benefits, which can range from discounts on items that they sell, as well as increasing their inventory available to the party. So by being able to invest in their business, they're able to make it grow, and they're able to make it more useful for you guys, be it in the form of cheaper items or new items that previously they might not have been able to acquire. Investing in them is definitely something that it can be incredibly helpful. Now, with the money from missions, you have the large chunk that goes to the kingdom, you have the discretionary account, and then the rest, of course, is going to go to the players to spend on whatever they feel like. So, lodging, items, and if you want to, you can even spend your own personal money on leveling up the NPCs, of which, of course, there would be some kind of a bonus attached to it. And the preliminary system for that we've determined, which would basically be, you would be rolling a 1d20, more likely than not, which would mean that whatever you rolled, we would multiply that by 5, and the gold that you would donate to the business would count that gold as additional. So to give you an example here, let's say you're speaking to a shopkeeper and you decide to donate 100 gold to their causes. So you roll the 1d20 for the bonus donation, and you roll, let's say, a 4, just for the sake of it. For that, a 4 would be considered a 20% bonus of what your gold would be. So for donating 100 gold, you would effectively be progressing their business 120 gold. So in pretty much any case where you have to roll, a crit success would be huge, because you're basically doubling your investment in the company without investing double the money.
Right.
So the leveling trees for NPCs are still kind of in the works, but the core NPCs you can level up have already been determined, and as it's designed right now, with our core NPCs, there are 8 of them available at the beginning of the campaign that you can start leveling up, with more of them potentially arriving in the city as time progresses. So, I know I just went through a lot of information there, but the biggest thing that we haven't gotten to yet is, when are we going to start playing again?
Yeah.
So, we're here to announce today officially that Season 2 of Yalaton, The Age of Revolution, will be making its debut on the weekend of Sunday, February 28th. So we're going to attempt to keep it to the 28th, but we might be running the 27th potentially. But as of right now, February 28th is going to be the beginning of Season 2. And the premiere is a 2-part adventure that is going to, unlike other campaigns for Yalaton, this one is going to have a set roster for the purposes of welcoming us back into the world. After those first 2 sessions, after our little season premiere 2-part concludes, we're then going to open the playground for everyone to play. The idea for the timetable for this session is one of the biggest things that kind of dogged down Yalaton was because of just schedules in general and how it worked for everybody. We sometimes had long stretches of time where we didn't run D&D. But what we're pledging to attempt to do as best as we can this year is that we're trying to run at least 1 session every 3 weeks. We may run out of one sooner than that, but 3 weeks is the maximum time between any D&D session.
Yeah.
This includes Age of Revolution, and in addition, the one-shots. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the one-shots to kind of close us off. As of right now, we do have enough people signed up to run 2 one-shots with groups of 4 people. So, as of right now, we've got enough people to run those, and that's all that'll be scheduled for now. We will schedule more as we accrue enough people to run more of these sessions. The 2 sessions that we're working on right now for players to join in on are Mad Metal and Trespassers. Now, in Mad Metal, players have been summoned to a city where a weaponsmith has attempted to make the most powerful weapon imaginable, with something going horribly wrong, animating all of the weapons in the city. Get to the bottom of it and solve the issue as quick as you can. The other campaign, Trespassers, this finds our players as nomads who have been taken in by a village who have spurned another group of people that attempted to arrive shortly after you did. It's up to you to find out what the other individuals' intentions are, whether or not you can truly find the home that belongs to everybody. So, these 2 campaigns are set to be run on off weeks of Yalaton. We're not sure which one will come first or who will be picked up first for each group. But if you have signed up, keep an ear out for more information about these 2 campaigns. The idea is, since we're starting late in February with Yalaton, that ideally by the end of March, we have gotten through at least one of these campaigns.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe what we end up doing is we do the first 2 weeks of Yalaton, then we run our one-shots, then we jump into Yalaton back again. But right now, that's not officially confirmed, but I can say that we are hoping to, within the first month or so of us running things, we would like to run at least one-shot before we get like super deep into Yalaton. That is definitely something that I can say. And other than that, we didn't really want to talk too much about the NPCs and who they are and that sort of thing today, did we?
Maybe we can name off a few, but we'll leave most of them for surprise.
Sure. I mean, I don't think giving names away is that much of an issue, so I think we can name them. I think we can name them all off, yeah?
Sure.
Okay. So, this is kind of a sneak peek in on Season 2 here. We've made all the NPCs for different things, and we're just going to tell you, like, the names of them. Most of them are new characters. The other one, there may be a couple that have names you might recognize. And should we tell them their position that they are in the city or not really?
Well, it can't hurt, sure. I mean, it's all basic stuff, so.
Right. So, our NPCs that you guys are going to get to hear about today, we decided to split this up for the leveling purposes into different areas. So, NPCs that you're not going to be able to necessarily level up in the traditional aspect is the Yalatanian court librarian Lana. We also have Lord Arvin, who is the headmaster of Sued Cathedral, as well as his daughter Trish. And then we also have Kat, the owner of the local pub, Testraphase. Now, the NPCs that you guys will be able to level up have different fields of expertise and varying merchandise that they sell. So, and we decided to split them up into all kinds of different ideas. One of them is Ziviz, who is a black marketeer. You'll find out more about how that works when you actually see the game played. We also have Yvette, the stable master, Zara, the alchemist, Marquise, the arcanist, Bailey, the armory representative, Lex, a heavy armor smith, Tarwill, a light armor smith, and then making his triumphant return in Yalaton as the general goods manager is Janice. For those of you who don't remember Janice, Janice is an eccentric person who you may or may not have experienced as a rope-selling merchant in the D&D one-shot The Troubadours.
He's just hanging around.
Yeah. So if you want to learn a little bit more and experience a little bit more of what Janice is going to be bringing to the table, I encourage you guys to watch the one-shot of The Troubadours, because he will be joining the cast as a regular NPC within the city of Bandus.
Alex straight up was like, rope salesman.
Get hype. He was too fun of an NPC to leave behind, so we definitely wanted to bring him into the fray, and he's going to be a very welcome addition, I think. So, but that's all we're going to give you in terms of the NPCs today, is we're just going to give you, their names. You'll learn more about them, their motivations, what leveling up each of them might do for you, specifically. And that's all going to be stuff that comes along a little bit later as we get back into Yalaton. So again, February 28th is when we want to attempt to start Yalaton.
Yep.
With one-shots coming shortly thereafter. And you know what? I think that's going to be about it. Paul, did you have anything you wanted to add or any questions that I didn't necessarily touch on real quick for the chat?
I think Meowth asked a question that maybe we should just remark on. So the people who did the one-shots have to make another character?
Okay. That is going to be dependent on the situation, because I do know and am aware that there was a specific one-shot that did not particularly have a very popular ending.
Right.
I'm aware of this. However, what I would like to say is that even if the party did survive in that essence, or in that session, because of when it took place within the Yalatanian timeline, there's a very high likelihood the party would probably be dead within the current day anyways.
Right.
And when I say that, I mean like this campaign, their specific campaign, We're Not Soldiers, took place about 300 years before Yalaton, like before we are at where we are now.
Right.
So, for the most part, yes, I would like people to create new characters. However, if they want to build a character that is functionally similar to an older character, I would allow that. If they want to bring in their character from the one-shot with their unique experiences that they had with that character, I will also allow this, but we will have to meet and figure out what needs to be done to get them up to speed.
Right.
So, basically, you can, like, even if your characters were killed, if you want to, you can more or less bring them back, but they're not going to be the same person.
Right. Give them a new name, new paint of coat. Or coat of paint. I did that backwards.
New paint of coat.
New paint of coat. Give them a new paint.
Yes, give them a new paint. Paint them black. Rolling Stones. No? Okay.
Yeah, that song's great.
Yeah, good song.
Mm-hmm.
Although, for real, the Sierra cover of that song that she did for The Last Witch Hunter, holy Holy shit. It's actually really good.
I didn't hear it, I don't think. I should go listen to it after.
It's actually really well done.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, new characters preferred. However, if you want to create a mechanically similar character or bring a character from a one-shot, yeah, you can bring them in. And we'll work on that. Alex Paul's just flummoxed because of rope salesman hype. A new paint of coat. Is that what you get when you go actually buy like the same coat, but it's a different color? It's a new paint of coat?
I guess so, yeah.
Man, I'm going to have to figure out a really practical use for that phrase now, because there's got to be a way that it works.
There's got to be a way. The English language is fucked, so...
There has to be a way to make that shit work.
For sure.
And then was there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
It seems pretty self-explanatory. I think the best way, if people have specific questions about their characters especially, they should be probably contacting you or I on Twitter.
Yes. And I think that should go pretty well, the same idea with just about anybody.
Yeah.
And again, I want to reiterate to people that we do have the rules for the campaign. However, like we said, if you've played in another campaign with somebody else and you can get like a mainline character's blessing, or if you just sign up for one of the one-shots, I promise, we'll get to you. And we'll get you in Yalaton. Because ultimately, we want to bring as many people back into the world as we can, while also making people get the opportunity to get to enjoy D&D.
Absolutely.
Alex asks in the chat, any chance of seeing non-D&D RPGs this year?
Absolutely, but
oh, I'm sure there will be.
But they will not follow the same 3-week rule or anything. They'll kind of be more sporadic.
Just like if they happen.
Yeah.
Okay, and then David is asking a point of clarification with the roll for donation thing. Okay. You say, I want to donate X gold, and then roll. You can't get a 20 and then say, you can, and then say, oh, I'm donating this much instead. That's right. So, before the roll, you declare the amount you are donating, and that is firm. So you can't do like a donation roll and then say, you know how I was donating 50 gold? Well, I just rolled like a 20, so I'm going to donate 500 gold instead, because then it'll count as 1,000. Like, no. You have to declare the amount that you are donating to the merchant first.
Yeah.
And that is considered firm.
Yeah.
The roll comes after that donation is technically made. So, I mean, if you want to end up donating more gold to them, you can, but that added amount would end up being like an additional roll. So say you roll, you know, say you want to donate 100 gold, and you roll at 20, then your bonus only applies to that first donation. If you want to donate more, you make another donation, and you roll for that one too. So donation amounts must be firm before you make your roll. So that's that's actually a good question.
Yep, for sure.
So that way people can't cheat the system.
I think that does it, though.
I think that pretty much does, yeah. I
Cool.
mean,
I'm looking
again,
forward to all of this, so...
I am too, but I'm also terrified as hell because there's a lot of back-end work to do. But you know what? We've had a long time off.
Yep. That's why we're kind of throwing it in players' hands now, too, though, honestly. It's like, you're responsible for your character now. Like, yeah, come prepared. Because there's a lot other stuff we're worrying about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, once again, I want to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to do as much cool shit as we did with D&D throughout all of last year. 2016 is going to be an even bigger, an even better year. We're going to be basically, as a community, we are going to be collectively creating our own universe.
Right.
And that's ultimately, I think, going to be very, very fun. But again, I want people to I want people to join us, and
Yep.
I want people to get in. I want people who are interested to join us. We won't bite much, but I can't promise that the rats won't, that you may have to fight.
Also, throw out ideas for, like, it would... Like, for example, a lot of our one-shots were literally just, like, talking with Hank one night, randomly, in a chat. Like, not even talking about D&D, just talking about silly things. And, like, be part of the community, come talk with us and stuff, throw some ideas you have out. Like, we listen to everybody's ideas, and if they don't work... Like, none of the Homer's, like, ideas really worked in the context of D&D until we altered them a little bit. So, like...
Yeah.
It's kind of a collective effort here. It's not just me and Tony, like, talking behind the scenes all the time. We're talking with everybody that wants to talk with us and trying to get, like, some ideas there. Like, Hannah, for Tia and stuff, has, like, a whole backstory which basically created a whole, like, area of the world that she's from. Like, if you're invested in this stuff, like, we'll listen to you.
Yeah, and the thing is ultimately, Yalaton only gets as much as you put in. And I want as many people putting in as much effort as they can for it. So I'm really excited to lead up with that. And then, another really good question in the chat. Even after watching previous games, would you suggest playing a game before signing up for the one-shots? I don't think you necessarily need to play before you do a one-shot, because for the purposes of our definition of a one-shot...
It's a teaching game.
One-shots are a teaching game that get people to play it for the first time, or maybe get a refresher on if they haven't played for a while. Like, by nature, the one-shot is designed for you to experience the game in general.
And then if you find you want more...
that, you don't have to have experience.
And then if you want more after doing that, and you're like, I actually like how this is doing, I'd like to see in a bigger context, that's when you're qualified for Yalaton anyways, which will be a more kind of serious take on it. Like, you'll be expected to know what you're doing and stuff like that. Not in the one-shots, but, like, in the actual world. And then you can just kind of expand.
Exactly. So don't let a lack of experience prevent you from signing up for a one-shot, because one-shots are where you go get that experience. And the thing is that we have no problems with helping characters out. However, it is also up to the players to go like, hey, if I'm kind of struggling with this, can you help me out? Or, can you direct me where to read up on so I can help you with this? Like, as a player, take agency and take responsibility into your own hands. So, like, know what you're doing. Don't ask for, like, what it takes to roll your initiative after the 9th or 10th encounter that we've had you in. You should know how to do this stuff.
Right. Not the first, like, few, though. We're not that mean.
No.
But, like, after a while, you get...
But after a while, it's like, come on, man. How long have you been doing this? You should know this stuff.
And I think it'll help if we're doing it more regularly than before, because it was easy to forget, like, rule sets and stuff like that when it's, like, 3 months in between. So... I mean,
and that
it'll help.
Does remind me after you finish.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Did you finish there? Okay. One of the biggest things that I also want to lay out there as well, because I want people to realize something, much like just about any D&D, any tabletop game that anybody's going to play, there are modifications. There are house rules. There are things that aren't necessarily in the book, but we may tweak around a little bit. For the purposes of our campaign, we're playing modified 4E. Everything we do isn't by the book. Sometimes you interpret the book a little bit differently than maybe it was intended to be. Or sometimes maybe you look the other way on a rule for the sake of advancing the game or having fun with it. Ultimately, if you're looking for something that is straight vanilla from the book, this probably isn't the place to do it.
Right. This won't be the place for you, for sure.
If you want to play straight from the book, that's pretty much what campaign modules are for.
Yep.
We're building our own universe with this.
Yep.
I mean, you watch any big D&D stream, they tweak the rules all the time, but look at the cool stuff they get to do. Why can't we do that? That's what we're doing with Yalaton.
And, like, make no mistake, for people that do watch those things, I watch them, Tony watches them, we are literally stealing their ideas and putting it in this thing because they're good ideas. So, like, we're making our own house rules, we're stealing other people's, and we're using the D&D 4E rule set as a base. So, like, this is our own game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, for example, as Tariff says in chat, West Marches is modded 5E.
Yep.
Yalaton is more or less modded 4E base.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna bring up Hannah's thing. I have an idea for a character in this world. Don't want to lose Tia. Could I sign up for a one-shot to use her? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
However, know that priority goes to the people that are still on the waiting list from last year first.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that if she's talking about a one-shot within the universe of Yalaton, or a one-shot within the sake of one-shots.
Yeah, okay.
We should probably
there is a clarification.
There is a difference there, because a one-shot, in general, we want priority on people who haven't played before.
Right.
But a one-shot within Yalaton, go nuts! So
Okay.
that's the thing, if you want it, you can play her for a session and then just like let her go and then bring back Tia if you want to.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. There is flexibility here. It depends on the situation, depends on what you want to design, and we'll talk about that off stream in the near future.
I'm going to add one more thing that you don't know about yet.
Oh.
I am being, like, goes back to what Alex was saying a little bit earlier. I am looking for a Shadowrun DM, like, to do stuff with as well. And if that goes to plan, we could probably try to do something with that with you, Tony, as a player, if you're interested. Like, I want to find at least one other.
Teach me, man.
I want to find at least one other like GM that we can go to, so you don't have to have all of the all of the work on your shoulders.
So Shadowrun. I know there was some brief talk potentially about Age of the Rebellion, right? Star Wars?
I think Age of the Rebellion, or Age of whatever it is. Yeah, you know which one we're talking about.
I was about to say, I think there's two of them that I know of. There's Age of the Rebellion and Edge of the Empire.
Yeah. That would be just like a one-shot thing, though, probably.
It likely wouldn't turn into anything consistent. I know that you still occasionally do Dungeon World with Chris the Awakened, right?
Yes. Yeah, we can do Apocalypse World specifically.
Apocalypse World.
Yep.
Right.
I don't know. We should get you in on I want to try my hand at DMing a little bit more and get used to it, because I did Call of Cthulhu and that went horribly for me because I'm not used to it. But
complex system involved there, and that's also another thing too. Is that don't you kind of have in the back like a 5e campaign set up?
I do have a 5e campaign started,
and that is Tales of Eneth, right?
Eneth, yeah, that's right. Yep.
So there's a possibility we might see some of that featured as well.
And then you can see me DM horribly. I've only ever DM'd once before. It was fun, but it wasn't what you would call great.
Trust me, you get better as you go. I still have much to learn and much to improve on, and I've been DMing now for about 2 years.
Yeah. It seems like a learning experience, like, every time you do it.
It is. It absolutely is, because you never know when your players are going to buy cupcakes from the baker and then poison them to kill their targets.
I have that shirt.
No idea. Yeah, and you also have no idea when one of your party members is about to backstab the entire party and then get wiped off the face of the earth in the process.
Right. All right. Well, we got to wrap this up because I got to get going. But
yeah.
Again, if anybody has any questions and stuff, please contact us on Twitter or social media that we use, and we'll try to clarify some specific stuff. And
absolutely,
I'm excited and a little worried because of how big this is gonna get.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be really exciting. And just to clarify for people, what we are going to be doing is, at some point in the future, we're going to be creating a universally accessible database with the kind of rules that we kind of use for character creation and, you know, tips and stuff about that. So think of it as like a Google Drive full of cheat sheets.
Yes, for sure.
So those will be coming with anything and everything you need to know about stuff like that. But again, also a little bit of a ways off. We want to have that up running sooner rather than later so that players have access to what they need to and what they need to know for that kind of stuff. Paul will probably be putting the sign-up sheets back out again.
Yes, I'll probably be doing a new one so I don't get them mixed up with the other one.
Okay. So sign-up sheets will be coming up soon for those, and that is for the one-shots, not the Yalaton stuff.
Right, that's for one-shots only.
Correct. We'll probably clarify Yalaton versus one-shots. We need to do a little bit better job of that, but we'll make sure that that's clear for everybody. And ceremony, soon. Not yet. Paul will tweet about it, though.
That might work, actually. For the one-shots, not for Yalaton. I have to do one specifically for Yalaton.
Oh, yeah, Yalaton is definitely not ready for this yet.
Right. That should still work, that thing there. So, anyways,
okay. Yeah,
thanks for hanging out and chatting.
Yes, absolutely. If you guys need to reach either of us, if you somehow don't already follow us on Twitter, Paul is available at Exposure, same as his Twitch name.
Yep.
And I am available at T_Pomps. So if you guys need to follow me or at me for any questions, that link is in chat, and that'll also be with the video description as well, because we're going to upload this as a video to YouTube as well, I think, right?
Yep. I'll probably even put the audio-only version on the podcast feed for anybody there that lurks.
Ooh, fantastic. So basically, at this point, guys, if you guys need access to the information, it'll be available.
Yep.
You just have to go find it.
And no excuses. Fucking lazy assholes.
It'll be up on multiple feeds. So again, thank you guys for everybody who is here and for anybody who submitted questions. And we're looking forward to coming back to Yalaton. We'll be back in 1 month.
Yep. Oh man.